So this evening, we have the pleasure of having Captain Carole Hopson as our keynote speaker. Captain Hopson currently serves as the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals Board of Directors Vice Chairwoman. She is a first officer for Express Jet Airlines. Aviation has always been Carole's passion, so she pursued flying and working as a flight instructor while raising her family. Previously, she was Vice President and Director for Training and Development of Foot Locker USA. There, Carole headed up executive level leadership coaching, as well as store associate training, creating original product knowledge videos and sales training for over 140,000 associates. Early on, she began her career as a police reporter and has worked for the Bergen Record and the Philadelphia Inquirer. She has also held executive level positions with the National Football League and L'Oreal Cosmetics. At the NFL, she helped guide professional players into work after football. And at L'Oreal, she headed up human resources for supply chain logistics in Cranberry, New Jersey, and Aurora, Colorado. Attending the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism, Carole earned her Master's of Science degree, and she holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Virginia in Spanish literature. Carole and her husband, Michael Hopson, have two sons, Joshua and Coleman, who's behind me, and they are residents of Montclair, New Jersey. So I'd like to direct your attention to the screens because we're going to show a brief clip, and once the clip is over, the next voice that you will hear will be that of Captain Carole Hopson. So let's give her a round of applause.
So we apologize profusely. While they're working on that, and we might see it at the end, I'll tell you what the video is about. It's much more interesting. A picture's worth 1,000 words. But I'll tell you what it's about. I met my husband in college, and I thought he was tremendously good looking and all that stuff. And I don't even know if he knew my name when we were in college. But later on, 10 years after school was done, we met. And he said, say, how about lunch? And I said, how about dinner? We went out, closed the restaurant down. And during our dinner, he said to me, I'd like to know what your heart's desire is. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's either a really good come-on line, or this guy's been working me over here for a little while and I didn't realize it. And I said to him, if I tell you and you laugh at me, this will be our last date. And I could tell we were kind of oiled up. It had been a very long dinner. He didn't want it to be the last date, so I knew it was okay to say that. And he said, so what is it? And I said, I want to fly an airplane. It was the first time I had said it out loud, and I was 34 years old. So, in a couple weeks, he gave me a gift certificate to one of the airports, and I took my first flight, and I knew I was hooked. And I came back and I told him that I was going to quit my job and go to flight school. And he said, whoa, 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 not the good job. Don't be quitting that thing. Not the good job. At the time, I was a vice president for a Fortune 500 company, Fortune 100 company. I believe at the time, only African-American female who headed up organizational development for a company of that size. I had all training and development. I'd gone from National Football League to there, and it was an amazing opportunity. I flew all over the world. We were in Amsterdam, Milan. I was in Mexico every 2 weeks. I had an office in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. I was the man. But what I really wanted to do when I got on that airplane was fly the plane. And it was so hard to step away from that. And I did. And I went from making 6 figures a year to making $17 an hour. And I had never been happier. Passion. Passion speaks volumes. And I want to tell you guys another story. As you can tell, I like stories, and so I like stories, and forgive me, it's after dinner, so I'm going to tell you a story. It's not a bedtime story. Don't anybody fall asleep on me, because I will come out and point you out. So don't fall asleep on me. Only on my airplane. There's a story I want to tell you. How many of you have heard of a lady named Lorraine Carey? She's a Philadelphia daughter. Yay! Lorraine Carey is an author. New York Times best-selling author. She's written 6 books. The first one is my favorite. It's called Price of a Child. She's my sister. Now, let me tell you this story. She has been, oh my goodness, New York Times, Boston newspaper, San Francisco Chronicle, you name a newspaper in the country, and she's been profiled in it. She's very modest, always very quiet about her work. And she called me one day, I was in New York at the time, and she said, oh my God, you can't believe it. And I said, what? What happened? She said, I'm in Jet Magazine. I'm in Jet. How many of you know Jet Magazine? I know. Okay, good, I'm talking amongst family. And I opened Jet, and on page 22, next to the beauty of the week, there were 2 paragraphs. 2 paragraphs. Now, this is my sister, the love of my life, my best friend. And I said to her, wait, let me see if I understand this. New York Times bestsellers list, Boston Globe, Chicago Tribune. You were 2 paragraphs in Jet? And she said this to me, and I'll never forget it. She said, when you are honored by your own, it means everything. So I thank you today for honoring me, for having me come and speak with you all. That is an honor. Because time is the only resource we can never buy more of. So thank you so much for allowing me this time. I promise to be brief, but I want to share this with you. Today I'm here with my mother. Her name is Carole. Actually, she's met friends already. Mommy does that. She's very good at that. And her neighbor of many years, Miss Phyllis Tyler. And our neighbor across the street, who knows me when I was little, when I was partially dressed, when I was fully dressed, when I run around the neighborhood, when I do all sorts of things, Miss Barbara Johnson. I'm also here with my husband, that delectable man I told you about before. He's right there. You have to stand or wave, do something, honey. My oldest son, that handsome gentleman over there, his name is Joshua Hopson. I hate to do this, but Joshua, would you stand up? That's my son. And I have another boy, too. His name is Coleman Hopson. Coleman, would you stand up? And my brother-in-law, his name is Christopher Hopson. Thank you, everyone, so much for welcoming my family. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of a picture slide. I love audio-visual stuff. This is the airplane that I fly. It's called an Embraer 145, affectionately known as a Texas Long Dart. It's long, it's skinny, it's really fast. It's very forgiving. The end of that story that I started telling you, so I'm like a serial storyteller, is that I quit my job and did what I do so much and so often. I went gangbusters to flight school. I finished everything from 0 to Shiro in 8 months. In 8 months, I went from 0 flight hours to a certified flight instructor, a multi-engine instructor, and I think I earned my CFII, which is you teach instruments a little bit later. But I earned my teaching certificate in 8 months, and I finished in June of 2001. July, August, September 11th. did what he always does, guidance, the light of our home. He said, you know, sweetheart, you're not getting any younger. I said, whoa, that belongs to you, buddy, not me. I am ever thus. And so, I was pregnant by September 17th. I gained 140 pounds with that pregnancy. I weighed 280 when my baby was born. 280 pounds. Yeah, wow, I know, it takes a second, right? Yes, it took a second. Lots and lots of dental floss. I ate everything. And I had this beautiful baby, and I tried to go back to work. And I did, and I missed him terribly. And I came home. So I fell back on my teaching certificate. I lost 140 pounds in 1 year. And then we went away to celebrate, and I got pregnant again. At that time, I gained 80 pounds, I weighed 240, and I had another gorgeous baby. 2 babies, lots of teaching certificates, and I couldn't leave them. I had fallen in love with this little cub tribe of men I had, and I couldn't go. And I blinked, and 13 years went by. I blinked, a decade just soared by. That whole time, I kept flying. So that little video, when you get it playing, is great. It's of a time when I went to my mentor's home. He lives in Olive Branch, Mississippi. And when I arrived, he said, put your hand out. And I did what I was told. He's my mentor, and I did what I was told. And he put 3 keys in my hand. He said, here are the keys to my pickup truck, the keys to my home, and the keys to my airplane. You keep talking about black women in flight. Go find you some, and go fly them. For 10 years, I had been working on a book. It's a historical fiction about Bessie Coleman. And here's my goal. How many people know Bessie Coleman? Ah, I love it. Well, before you leave it, you're gonna know more about it. Okay. So I've been working on this book, and I'm still working on it. I have an agent. She's an African-American woman of a certain age. And although she's gotten up there in age, her mind is extraordinary. Just extraordinary. And my goal, over the last 10 years, my poor mother, my husband, my children are so tired of hearing me talk about it, is book, movie, and I'd like to send 100 black women to flight school. 100 black women. So my good friend, Captain Wells, my new friend, we met each other for the very first time in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago, where we were recruiting 230 pilots, the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. We were there recruiting pilots. In August, we'll be recruiting more. That'll be 1,500. In addition to mom and book and flying, I help run the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals with another woman who is the FAA change guru. And if you think your job is stressful, try being change guru in the FAA. That's, it's quite a handful. Anyway, we run the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, and our goal is to bring aerospace to people who have never ever seen it. So it does my heart warm, very warm, to meet the students from Dell State and to meet these round of applause. They're going to be encouraging. The long road, challenging road. And these young individuals, this young lady, does my heart wow to meet these individuals who are also interested in flying. Before you leave, get Captain Wells' card. He offered you help, take it. It's a long road, and there's a lot of bumps along the way, but it's definitely worth it. Okay. So, if you wouldn't mind, call the next slide. So, here's the outside of my airplane. That's the inside. Yeah, it's a lot of colors, a lot of lights. And so interesting, when I was looking for a good picture, I don't know if you could tell this, but the perspective. They shouldn't have given me this microphone because I like to move around. The red is sunset. I know you thought, oh my God, that's a really awful picture. Why don't you show us this picture? The red is sunset. Those great big hash marks that you see across, going from left to right, diagonally this way, those are the threshold of the runway. That's the threshold of the runway. And then I'm going to bring you inside. Up top, all those lights and switches, things, ooh, I just love just looking at them and touching them and pushing them. That's our overhead panel. There's all sorts of stuff there. And as you come down, those displays are what we read and how we navigate in the airplane. That's it. It looks terribly complicated, but trust me, it's not that complicated. It's, for example, if you were to ride a bike in the beginning, getting your balance was hard. Then later, it was easy, right? And so at any time you go away and you come back, you can ride that bike. And it's not quite like that there, but it's a lot like that. I like to use that analogy because we're so frightened of it because it's new. But it's not that bad. And we learn bit by bit, like anything else. Next slide, Coleman. Girls rock wings. Grow. I'm going to tell you guys about something I did 2 weeks ago. So let me back up for a second. My lovely family has indulged me in this adventure. And here we go. I'm going to take you through the last 2 weeks of my life. I finished a trip in Houston, 16 cities in 4 days, and we finished in Houston. I got on an airplane and deadheaded, which just means I'm sleeping on the way back. I sleep back to Newark. I land in Newark, and I go home. I sleep in my bed. I wake up, get my kids off to school, and wait for my youngest to come home. He comes home. My oldest son goes with my husband to Indianapolis to be in a AAU tournament. He plays basketball. That makes sense, right? And then my youngest son came with me back to Houston. And what did we do? We had 4 African-American flight instructors fly 50 girls in the city of Houston. Wow! Girls rock wings. Now let me tell you, that was historic. When I started instructing, there were maybe a dozen African-American women in the country who were flight instructors. We had 4 in one place. And you're like, oh my goodness, 4, doesn't sound like many. So let me give you some statistics. In the United States, less than 1% of the population has what Steve and I have, and it's called an ATP, an Airline Transport Pilot Certificate. Less than 1% of Americans hold that rating from the FAA. Of that number, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000, that number varies because people retire, they come in, they go out, they break a leg, they can't fly, they come back. Of that number, approximately 7% are women. Of that number, 1.7, less than 2% are African American. Of that number, the number of black women who fly for a living, we are 75. It's heartbreaking for me. Bessie Coleman flew in the 1920s. June 15, 1921, she earned brevet, it's a French word for certificate, pilot certificate 18310. When she earned her certificate, she was the first American, not African American, not female, the first American to earn a French brevet. Now, I say that sentence, and what's missing in the middle is that she had to go to France to learn how to fly because no one would teach her in the United States. So that means that she had to learn French to learn how to save her life. You heard Eugene Bulliard's name spoken earlier. 1917, he flew in World War I. He had 7 kills and earned the French Croix de Gras, or, look, I speak Spanish, I don't speak no French. He won the Medal of Honor and Valor for 7 kills. He was extraordinary. And the airplanes they flew, by the way, were made out of cloth and wood. Cloth and wood. And they were dog fighters. And what they learned in the teens is still used today by American fighter pilots. The maneuvers. Yes, we fly now at the speed of sound. The airplane I fly flies at 0.8 Mach. Almost the speed of sound. On a very windy day, when we're coming down the chute at Newark, we'll fly as fast as 600 miles an hour. I've clocked 630. Then you have to slow it down. Darn, that part's awful. But having said all of that, Eugene Beaulieu was the first African American. But again, he didn't have a civilian certificate. So the FAI, Federation Aeronautique Internationale, that was civilian. Bessie went over there, flew her butt off, came back here, was 50 years ahead of commercial aviation. And what was she to do with that? She went back. She went to Paris, she went to Berlin, she went to Amsterdam. And she learned from some of the very first dog fighter pilots. She came back to the US and performed in shows all across this country. Now remember the year, 1921. She was flying in Chicago, in Texas, in Florida, in California. Some of us haven't been to those states today. Having said that, she was amazing, extraordinary. And the Tuskegee Airmen consider her their mother. They knew their history. I'm going to share one more thing with you, and then I'm going to go through the Girls Rock Rings and show you some pictures, some images that I hope will be seared into your minds. In addition to what they did, in addition to that flying, in addition to everything that the Tuskegee Airmen did, many of them came back to a world that's very changed, and in some ways was very unchanged. And I had the good fortune, I was taking you through my week. So Coleman and I went to this event. I came back, went to Tuskegee Next, which is in Chicago. Their goal is to send 100 inner city kids to get their private pilot certificate. And they connected with the organization of Black aerospace professionals so that we can take them after that. Those individuals had this amazing gala in a hangar, and I met 2 Tuskegee Airmen there. And they talked about the following. They said when they came home, 30 missions, guarded bombers, there were a couple of things that you could imagine. They weren't allowed to sit in the front of the bus. They weren't allowed to sit in the theaters. And one of them said something that just broke me up. He said that they were allowed in the officers' club in Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana. But they weren't allowed, he was a swimmer. I was a swimmer when I was in high school. They weren't allowed to swim the pool until the 7th day. And on the 7th day, they were allowed to swim because on Monday, they cleaned the pool for the rest of the day. So we have come a very far way. But I will tell you this, when I step into the cockpit, almost always, I'm greeted by, not by my colleagues, because I've been at my company for a minute now, but by passengers. And most of the reactions are extraordinary. They're always wonderful. And for a lot of times when I go down south, the black women will come up to me and they say, "Girl, can't believe you! Oh my gosh, oh my goodness!" And my colleagues look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, "Oh my God, what did you do? How did you meet all those people?" And I say, "I've never met them before in my life. I've never seen this like before." But the outpouring of goodwill is extraordinary. So I'm going to take you through the slideshow, and then I'll finish up my week, how the weekend did. Yeah, Mommy, that's my mommy. Okay, come on to the next slide, please. That's my mommy. You gotta love your mommy. So here we are. We're at the Lone Star Flight Museum in Houston, Texas. There are, and I counted, I don't know, I think there are 12 airline pilots, African American females. And then the ladies to the left, 1, 2, 3 on the left, and 1, she's in 1 on the right. They were the 4 flight instructors. Coleman, next slide. And then it was hot and I was getting tired, so I laid down on the ground next to all those little girls. And it was just fun. Next slide, Coleman. And here are 50 girls who got an opportunity to fly an airplane. Wow. One of my sisters, she's in this picture, she's at the end. She called me up, she said, Carole, we sat in the car when I picked you up in Houston and you told me about the 100 Black Women in Flights when I got this idea. She said, I'm going to put this thing on. I said, well, did you budget it? How much will it cost? Well, and I said, listen, you know, everything we do, we have to budget. It's a discipline around this. Now, let me fill this in. She's a 787 pilot with United, and so I'm telling her what I think we need to do. But many times, because of my experience, I am often a mentor in life while they are flight mentors. When I was staying at home raising my kids, I'm still managing life, but the flying part, they are my mentors, but I mentor them often in life. Next slide, Coleman. Here are some little girls playing with airplanes. I mean, when I was a kid, I almost couldn't say it. My dad used to buy me Hess trucks, and I was so happy. They weren't dolls. I played with the dolls, but I wasn't crazy about it. I wanted that. I wanted airplanes. And back when I grew up in the 70s, that was considered weird, strange, bizarro. So I kind of kept my mouth shut and laid in the grass. And my grandmother's house in South Jersey, I was on the approach pass to Philadelphia International. And I would just keep it to myself. Next slide, Coleman. And we just put our hats together because we thought that was fabulous. And I said to my husband, give me the next one, Coleman. I'm not sure what comes after this. I forget what we put. Okay, I'll stop there. This is a young woman in an astronaut's helmet, a real astronaut's helmet. Next slide, Coleman. Now, if these were boys, that wouldn't have happened. They were banging on me. I know because I had some boys, okay? She kissed her sister. And I thought about how we learn differently. It's not bad, it's not good, we just learn differently. And we need people to let us go ahead and learn differently. And I just thought, that's like my favorite picture from that event. Next slide, Coleman. Okay, so here's where I go underneath my table and I do props. Okay, they shouldn't have given me this microphone to walk around with. I should have told them that. But here you go. So the young lady on the right says to me, oh, Miss Carole, she said, I want to play dress up. What we did was we had one of those photo booths where you hold the thing, you take the picture. And that was very important because it had to do with visioning. So when she holds up a sign that says, I'm a captain. Tomorrow I will fly. Today I will fly. That's part of the funding. I had to go out there and find the picture booth for $500. But we can't let that go because that's visioning. You see yourself as such, you will become that. My husband had a saying for my children. He said to them, I should put you on the spot, honey, whether you can or you can't, you will. So if you say you can, you will. If you say you can't, you will that as well. So that's why I'm married. I'm so bright. Anyway, the little girl on the right says, Miss Carole, I can't fit the hat over my ponytail. I said, I got you, Mama. My hat's big because I got a great big old head. Try my hat. And she put the hat on, and that was her smile. And it was just one of those moments where, yeah, you know what? Our hair fits too. Our hair fits too. Now I got my hair done for y'all today, but very often around they don't quite look like this. Okay, next slide. I want to tell you about this picture right here. This lady to the left, I gave a flight lesson to when she was 15 years ago. She is a flight officer for the Coast Guard. And because my group had 9 girls, I had an extra space. And so Coleman, who came with me, got to fly for the young woman whom I gave her first. Next slide, then we have 2 or 3 left. That's Nia, my colleague and friend, after a day well done. She's done. She and her daughter fell asleep. Next slide. Done. This is Bessie. And I want you all to know something about this picture. So this picture appears on that Corvette I told you about. She has no makeup. Her hair is not seen. And yet, she is gorgeous. Next slide, please, Carmen. And there she is. When I'm around, you don't always look picture perfect, and that's her working. It's so funny, I took just a screenshot. My husband was helping me put this together, and I saw down the bottom, images may be subject to copyright, but I showed them to you. Next slide, Carmen. Here are the 2 gentlemen I met, Julian Johnson and Hollis Cornelius. And they were the ones telling me these stories. And I met them at Tuskegee next at the Red Tail banquet that just happened 3 weeks ago. So all this was in the last couple weeks. Next slide, Coleman. And this is one of the last slides. So here are 5 of us. The lady on the left works for Mesa, the same airline as Captain Wells. The lady next to her, so going from left to right, works for Alaska Airlines. There's me in the middle, shortest of them all. There's a lady to my right. Her name is Diane Brown. Diane, while I was on, I call it extended maternity leave for 13 years, I helped Diane get a job, and she repays a favor today. And then the lady over there on the right is named Anya Kearns. Funny story. Anya and I fly a lot of the same routes, and we wind up staying in the same hotels. And the van driver always says to me, "Hey, I saw you a couple hours ago. You going back out?" Now, I think we look enough alike, but Anya always wears red lipstick. I always wear brown. She's lovely, and I'm happy to say I got 25 years on Anya, so you can mistake me for her any day. But when I showed that picture to my husband, I said, this makes me want to go after Ray-Ban or Persol to go get a sponsorship from sunglasses. And he said to me, smart husband, this is why I have babies with him. You know what he said? He said, don't do that. Go to them and tell them that you want a sunglass line for women. All women. Go ahead, clap. Next slide, please. This is the website that you can donate to. There's an amazing silent auction out there. I've already exercised my husband's credit card out there. This lady with the kente cloth, oh my gosh, her stuff is gorgeous. I'm gonna send mommy over to Mary Kay, and I bought some gorgeous posters. One of Harriet Tubman, and the other one of, who else did I buy? Not Mary Church Terrell. Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells, who, by the way, was the only person who wrote Bessie Coleman a handwritten congratulations letter for her achievement, June 15, 1921. One more thing about that date. That was almost 2 years to the date. 2 years to the date that Bessie Coleman flew before Amelia Earhart. Oh, yeah. 2 years almost to the date that she flew. So if you're so inclined, please take out your smartphone and give. These programs are not free. They are hard to put together. And I have to tell you, Mr. Payne talked to me when I was in hotels all across the country. Maybe in the La Quinta, in the Holiday Inn, and all over the place. He has been extraordinary and an incredible ambassador for the Tuskegee Airmen. I thank you so much for listening to me. If I leave you with 2 things, it's please give, and women, I love how my colleagues said that we eat less and that we take up less oxygen. I appreciate that. From one who has gained and lost almost 250 pounds, I appreciate that. And I receive that. I'd like to leave you all with the notion that scholarship begins with us. I told you that story about Jet Magazine for a reason. When we support our children, go far. Then they don't leave us, they just go far. Airplanes take people far. And that space helmet takes people further. I want you young people to dream so hard that you just make it come true. Hope's not a strategy, but hard work is. If you have the opportunity to get a card, develop a mentor, like the one I did, who gave me keys to his home, his plane, his airplane, to his pickup truck. And by the way, my husband came down to visit, make sure that was all pretty kosher. His name is Albert Glenn, 777 Captain for FedEx. I want to thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. Thank you for paying for your tickets and not bombing them. I'll do that. Thank you very much. Give to your heart's delight. Go buy something from these amazing vendors. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So can I ask that Captain Hopson's family come up, please? Her mother, her husband, 2 sons, brother-in-law. I don't know about all of you, but I have been truly inspired by the words of Captain Hopson. And in fact, I am going to talk to her about flight lessons for both me and my 18-year-old daughter, who wants to study international business. And what a better way to start international business from the cockpit of a plane that can take her internationally. So.
My mom. Thank you all for listening to her. She's my baby daughter, and I can't tell you how much I love her.
Let's have another round of applause for Captain